What should you expect from your MAT sessions when you go from addressing symptoms to trying to improve strength? That's exactly what we want to talk with you about on this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercises Health Podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we're discussing this idea of what you should expect during your MAT sessions when you go from addressing symptoms, like a very symptom-focused session, to really trying to build your strength through muscle activation techniques and strength training. And we want to let you know that if what we are discussing today is something you are interested in starting to take action on, that's exactly what we can help you do at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. All right, so this idea that we're discussing today, a lot of people start with muscle activation techniques because of some kind of symptom that they have. Maybe it's tight muscles or achy joints or some pain or something not feeling great in some area of their body. And so they seek out muscle activation techniques, and more times than not, relatively quickly, they start to notice those symptoms improving and potentially those symptoms completely resolving. And then they're kind of at a crossroads, right? Of like whether or not, they want to keep pushing forward, or they're just like, oh yeah, like surface level, symptoms feel good, so we're going to stop things. And when they decide to keep going forward and really start to build the strength, the resiliency, their ability to tolerate stuff, like tolerate stresses and activities and everything else that they're doing in their life, things can start to change from an MAT perspective, and that's a really good sign, but it catches people off guard. And so we want to explain what is happening with that and dive into more details about that today.
So when people start MAT, a lot of times, especially when you're working here or with a more upper level practitioner, you're probably going to be doing some local stuff, but usually then eventually you will transition into like an RX type model. And if you're familiar with RX, you know this, but if you're not, what happens is there's kind of an order to things. And so you can kind of track your progress where it's like, oh, well, first day we did, the first two patterns or the first two motions. And then the next time we redid, motion 2 and we did 3 and 4. And then we did the 5th and 6th one, right? And so you're like, wow, we're really getting progress. We're moving along through my body. And so when people are coming in and they're not really changing their environment outside of here, meaning like I didn't work out and now I still don't work out, then you're going to see that progress. And you're going to be feeling like, wow, my symptoms are feeling better. I'm feeling better, and a lot of people get to a point where they're saying, hey, but I also want to be exercising. So that's what that is saying to like a practitioner like us is, hey, I want to add stressors to my body. And that's actually a really good thing because you're going to feel great and keep symptoms away by continuing MAT. But you're going to get way stronger, way more functional, way more ready for like activities in your life if you also add in the strength training, the stressors of strength training. So it's like a really good thing. But what changes in the MAT sessions when you go from I'm not changing my external stressors and I'm doing MAT to now I'm adding in more external stressors and doing MAT, that's where people are like, wait, what? I thought we were like on motion number 15. Why are we back at motion number 1? What happens is as our body is going through the MAT process, it's adapting to the stressors that are present to your body and saying, hey, we can tolerate that. We can tolerate that. We got that. We got that. We got that. But now you're adding in workouts to improve your health. It's amazing for your body. It's necessary for your body. But now your body's saying, wait a second, that's a new stressor. I'm not so cool with that, or I'm unsure about that, or that was pretty taxing. And what happens is you'll start seeing some of your motions that you've already cleared return. But it's for a good reason.
You're exactly right. It is for a really good reason. And that reason is because you are building up your tolerance to the stresses that are being placed upon your system. And that in, the exercise world is what we call getting results. Like that's how your body gets results. You apply some kind of stress or challenge to your body, then your body adapts to that stress, and now that thing that was stressful no longer is. To put it in very plain terms, it's like, okay, maybe, you did leg press at 150 pounds and that felt really stressful the first time you did it. And then 3 weeks later, you're, still doing leg press at 150 pounds, but it no longer feels nearly as stressful because your body has adapted to it, okay? So the same thing happens within the muscle activation techniques process, where we apply a stressor to your system gets stressed because it is a new stress, a higher level of stress, a higher intensity of stress, whatever it is. It's something that your body is unaccustomed to. And now all of a sudden it says, okay, well, that work that, those muscles that were working well before at the previous level of stress, yeah, we're not able to function as well now at this higher level of stress. Okay, cool. So you go back, you rework on those muscles, and then you apply that stress. And your body says, okay, now we got this. Now that thing that used to be really stressful, now it no longer is nearly as stressful. And what that means for you is you get to do more stuff throughout your life without it taking such a toll on your body. Just like if you're doing 150 pounds on the leg press and it feels really stressful, and then 3 weeks later you're doing 150 pounds on the leg press, it doesn't feel as stressful. Like, that would be a measure that, okay, your strength probably went up, which means you're not just strong at doing the leg press. Now all of a sudden you got this strength that you can use when you're walking the stairs, when you're walking around the grocery store, when you're carrying stuff around your house, when you are hauling luggage at the airport, whatever it is, whatever you need to use your leg strength for, you get to take that strength with you wherever you go that you built on that leg press because your body has adapted to it. And so with muscle activation techniques, it's a very similar process where we're saying, okay, your body has showed that it can function well at, this level of stress. But what if we increase that level of stress? Oh, okay, now these things are starting to show that they're not functioning as well. Great, let's clean those up. And now at this higher level of stress, they are functioning well, which means outside of our sessions, off the table with whatever you're doing in your daily life, your body can tolerate more.
You're right, Charlie. And even I experienced this in my MAT session this week, where I had been coming off of a little bit of a rough patch with how my body was feeling. And when I would get on that table for MAT, I already knew, as soon as Charlie would say, okay, bend that way, lift your leg that way, or whatever, I was like, oh no, my body does not want to do these things. It's talking to me. It's not feeling very good. But what was interesting is that we cleared that, right? So we got out of the symptom reduction phase, and I got back to exercising. And I had my session this week, and I said, I'm feeling pretty darn good. Like, there's nothing that I would highlight and say, oh, that's not feeling good. And even when I was going through some of the motions, when we would find a weakness, I remember telling Charlie, like, oh, that's surprising. I didn't realize, because it's not hollering at me anymore. But I went from this period of, I had kind of taken a little break from exercising to, hey, I'm returning to exercise because I'm feeling good, but that also means that the stressors, the forces, the physical stressors on my body are now higher, right? Like, I'm asking my muscles to do more physical work. And so what's cool is both types of sessions are really great, but the ones where you show up and you're symptom-free and you are still getting tune-ups, those motions, they probably, not that we have any kind of, no one could ever study this, but it's like those would probably have led to symptoms down the road had you left them untreated, right? Because they were brought out just by you adding in, force, stress, workouts to your body, which you need to do to stay healthy. And so what's cool is that when you're symptomatic, you're going to feel all these things in your body. And when you're asymptomatic and you're working your body and you're feeling like you're moving in the right direction, you might notice some stuff show up. But that's going to highlight to your practitioner, hey, these are your weak areas, and it's great that we're addressing them while they're asymptomatic so they don't turn symptomatic. But it's very important that you're regularly taxing and stressing and working your body to get the health benefits, while also continuing to do your MAT even when you're asymptomatic, because you're going to notice some things that you felt like, didn't we do that 6 months ago, shows up because there was a random force in your body or a new level. Maybe you started running again or doing jumps or whatever it was. And it highlighted that vulnerability. And we want to take care of that before it turns back into that symptomatic process of, hey, let's get you out of these symptoms.
Totally. I mean, I know that when I'm experiencing something going on with my body, I'm always like, okay, look, I'm one MAT session away from feeling really well. And those sessions are awesome. Like, okay, something comes up, in my knee or my hip or whatever. Okay, I get it, get my body worked on, and my body gets back to that baseline of like, okay, it's feeling really good. And like I said, those sessions are awesome. But the sessions where I come in and I'm like, no, I'm feeling really good, and we're able to draw out and figure out, okay, like this is not symptomatic and like surface level it's testing really well, but there's some underlying vulnerability here that, at some level I'm unaware of, and we're able to draw it out and we're able to address it. Going through a session like that, I leave feeling supercharged. I leave feeling like, okay, yeah, like I was good before, but this feels like a completely new level of confidence, completely new level of ability for my body. And it's not like I went from feeling bad to good, or, feeling, good to like, oh my gosh, like, like this feels great. It's like, I feel good at the start. I feel good, at the end. But the difference is like that end, it's like my body feels like it's at a completely different level, not symptom-wise, but ability-wise, strength-wise, performance-wise, my ability to, jump high, my ability to, lift heavy, everything like that. I'm like, okay, my body is supercharged now, even though symptomatically it feels exactly the same, which was, asymptomatic, as it did at the beginning of the session. And when people can get to that level with their muscle activation techniques progress, that is where you can see it in their mind, this switch happens of just how powerful this process is. Because look, there's a lot of stuff out there that can change symptoms. There's a lot of stuff out there that, shoot, you can, get some over-the-counter stuff, pop that, and now all of a sudden, like, your symptoms are better. Okay, great, fine and well, all right? Changing symptoms, awesome, great. But when you can go from this feeling of like, all right, yeah, like I feel, like I have control of my body, I have some strength, I have physical abilities, I can do the things I want in my life, and then all of a sudden you get off the table and you're like, I feel darn near limitless. Like I feel that locked into my body. This is a completely new level of being, of just like physical being than I have been feeling up to this point. That's really special, and that's incredibly unique. And I don't know of anything else out there that allows people to experience that dramatically and that consistently when you get to that level with your muscle activation techniques progress. And so for me, that really is the thing that's like, why would I even consider doing anything else? Not only like symptomatically does this address everything that, I have pop up every now and then, but from a physical ability, performance, like feeling like my body's entire system just totally got elevated. To me, there's nothing that even comes close to this.
You're totally right, Charlie. And that is like the power of putting muscle activation techniques together with, lifting heavy weights and sticking with MAT past the point of symptom reduction. Because again, MAT is always going to take your system to the next level. And so sometimes that means like, hey, we're at the level where we're experiencing all these pain signals and, limited motion and the tight feelings and all that stuff. And we're going to the next level, which is less pain signals, less tightness, more motion, right? But what if you enter in feeling really darn good? You're like, wow, I can't believe like I even walk around living like this. What is an MAT session going to do? Just try. And you're going to notice how much more powerful you feel, how much more like together your body feels. But also, I see this all the time in how it shows up in people's workouts. Like I recently had 2 women start with me that had like a whole bunch of systemic stuff going on, right? There was like local stuff, right? Like my hip hurts, or my neck flares up when I do this, or my thumb hurts when I, all this stuff. There was local stuff, but there was so much systemic stuff. And I knew that because the first time that we did like a light workout, we had a headache. We had like my hip was feeling a little bit worse, or, things were like systemically not feeling it, a little bit of nausea, right? So it was showing how low their system was. And so what we did was we changed course. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to be heavy on the workout because I know you want to work out, and a little bit on the MAT, we said, hey, no, let's do heavy on the MAT, and then we'll rebuild in the workouts. And so what the MAT is doing is just building up their nervous system to say, hey, we can tolerate stressors, we can tolerate forces, we can tolerate weights, right? Because that's how you're really going to get healthy. And so many people don't exercise because they're like, well, yeah, my body doesn't tolerate, it doesn't feel good, right? It's not just like I go to the gym and it hurts my knees, but it's like I go to the gym, it hurts my knees, I get a headache, I feel like I want to pass out after, or I need to go take a nap after, right? And part of it is like, yeah, you can scale it back. But if you want to expedite this process and make sure that you are like putting yourself on a better path, adding in the MAT piece is really going to steer your body in that direction. And that's like the really cool thing that we see like systemic wise when we're adding the two together.
Exactly. So making this jump from just looking at symptoms and, doing muscle activation techniques in order to try to have symptoms addressed to actually using it as a performance tool, whether you consider yourself like a performance-based person or not, like, look, every single day you wake up, you have to perform in your life. There are activities, there are daily tasks that you need to perform at, and muscle activation techniques 100% without question can help you perform those activities, perform those tasks better. And so it requires moving out of this kind of just trying symptom management, symptom addressing phase into really looking at building your strength, building your performance with muscle activation techniques, with strength training. And that's where we see people's progress it just hockey sticks up in terms of what they are able to do in their life, in terms of how they regularly feel throughout their life, in terms of how much stuff they are able to tolerate in their life and still feel well and still keep going and still doing all the other stuff that they want to do and need to do in their day. And it just requires continuing to push forward once you feel like, okay, like symptomatically I'm doing well. Like, that's not the end of the road. Honestly, that's the beginning of everything that muscle activation techniques can do for you. So if you're hearing this right now and this is something you're ready to get started with, you're ready to take action on, that's exactly what we can help you do at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com. Click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We always appreciate your eyes on YouTube, your ears on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating and review wherever you consume our content, it always means the world to us when you do. We are wishing you a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.